What do you guys got?
You got a starter for Monday yet?
No, not yet. You guys are reading the same things I am. You're probably closer to some of the conversations than I am, so you can take a pretty good guess at it, but nothing's been confirmed yet.
This is a observation by the Wizard here that this is the same lineup as yesterday. Is this the first time you've done that this year?
Yeah.
Why did you decide to?
Yeah, I thought about a couple of different situations. I could have mixed and matched a little bit, but felt like this lineup had some continuity. And for the first time, somebody didn't need a day off in the group. I just thought it was a good opportunity for us to go out there again, the same guys hitting around one another, and see if we can put up another strong performance offensively. Tomorrow's a bigger deal for me. Darvish causes some matchup problems, so we may not have every matchup we want tomorrow, but I feel like we could have a strong matchup today.
Speaking of tomorrow, we kind of got lost in the shuffle because so much happened in that game that Jameson in St. Louis. What did you see early from him as opposed to once he kind of settled in a little bit?
Let me see here. I got to go back. I thought he came out very aggressive with his stuff, and then just started to miss. There were some misfires, if I can remember correctly, and then I think his final inning in the third or 2/3, whenever I removed him, I think there were shorter innings, and he started to land some pitches and get ahead in counts. I think his two-seam fastball, if I can remember correctly, started to really show up, and he got a lot of swing and miss with that, a lot of weak contact with that. So he's got some weapons. I think it just might take him a little while to figure out what those weapons are right now because he hasn't had the reps as a starter. But I think all good starters can find out quickly within the first couple innings what's going to work, and we'll have a conversation with the catcher about what some of the adjustments are that need to be made. I still think Dre's in that period where he's still finding this stuff.
Is that something that as a pitcher gets more experience, they pick up quicker and quicker?
I think so.
Make adjustments instead of committing the inning from batter to batter.
I think so. Dre was only a second or third start, right, back in the rotation, so I still think he's finding his way, but he's getting pretty close. I think you'll see some big improvements here.
Last night when you were asked about Gabriel Moreno, you spoke mostly about the hitting, but Zach was really effusive in his praise of the work that he's doing behind the plate. And I just wanted to get a little bit more out of you about what you're seeing from him as far as ability to absorb the game plans and work with the pitchers on those. And it's obvious he's got the arm, he's receiving well and all that.
Yeah, so specifically the game calling and the relationship with the pitcher. So we knew that would take a little bit of time. He is still getting to know some guys, and it's around that last couple of weeks of spring training, last couple of days of spring training that you really turn up the dial on that. But out of fairness to him, I think once Carson got hurt, there was just a crash course in what direction he was going to be going in and how he was going to start to develop those relationships and start to develop a feel for calling a game. So I think he's gotten better each game. Zach calls a lot of his own pitches. I know you guys are able to see that the same way that I am, but they get in line with one another, and it starts to get fun to watch. Overall, I think Moreno has done a very good job in calling games. It's a lot that we put on our catchers here, and it takes time to get a feel for that. So given his youth, the transition from the other team, from a new team, from a different team, and finally figuring out how to do things, I think he gets better and better every start.
I know he's essentially a rookie, so there's a limit on this to start, but just watching his body language and the way he seems to interact with people, he looks like one of those real take charge kind of guys. And I'm not going to be surprised if we see that really emerge over the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think he's afraid of anything. You can tell by the way he walks through the clubhouse, and he'll go where he wants, have a conversation with anybody he wants to. That's hard for a young player. A lot of times young players are hunkered down at their locker, and and just keeping it themselves. I don't think that's part of his play. So I agree with you. I think he's respectful of his surroundings. I think he understands what he's got to get to. It's just a process with how he's going to get there.
Have you been anxious at all about his heavy workload, obviously with the injury to Carson?
Mm-hmm.
21 games, started 15 of them, had to fill in for Jose when he left the game in St. Louis. I'm assuming that going into the year, you probably were aiming for a nice balance of Carson and Gabby.
Yeah, a little bit. I was looking at that today. I think the overall games played, if we were to continue on this pace by the end of the season, I wouldn't be exactly comfortable with where it landed. So I'm just going with it as much as I can right now early, so this crash course shortens and ends a little bit quicker. And I think he's passing every test that we're throwing at him. But you're right, I definitely want to be mindful of the overall games played for that position. So it's a little bit heavy right now, and at some point we'll probably back off of it.
When Carson comes back, do you plan to sort of do a decel, or do you think it's going to be kind of going with the plan that you hope to have at the beginning of the season, where maybe it's a bit more balanced? Like when Carson comes back, and how did you see him kind of taking the beginning of a much heavier workload?
Probably not. I think just out of fairness to what Carson is going through right now and fighting to get back here as soon as possible, I'll probably integrate him and give him as soft a landing as possible, but eventually increase his workload as well. And where that balance is and where it meets, I'm not sure right now. I think Carson's health and his ability to be productive based on his return will be something I look into.
Corbin Carroll has struck out looking 7 times. I went back and looked, and it looks like all 7 of those pitches were outside of the strike zone potentially. Has that been kind of your sense that umpires maybe done him dirty a little bit early in the season?
I don't know that answer. I've had a small discussion with Corbin about that. It's frustrating when a young player comes up here and fights to get back into counts, and you're working hard at looking at a 3-2 pitch, and you survey it, and it's going to be a ball, and it is a ball, but it's called a strike. That gets to be pretty frustrating. So I'm aware of that. I've complimented him on his composure. The umpires, I think today, don't necessarily test. I know in years past, they probably would have tested him, but he's doing just fine. Eventually he'll start to get those calls, and he's doing it the right way. But I know it's frustrating for him. You could tell by his body language, and especially when he comes back in the dugout, he'll let you know that it was definitely not a strike. And I appreciate that input, because I go to look at it, and he confirms it just the same way you were confirming it today. So are they testing him? No. Some might, but I think the majority are doing their best every single time to call it a ball or strike based on where it appears on the plate.